the big, bad, old story. Dun, dun, dun. The old story can be really scary. A lot of people, a lot of people are very concerned about what to do with the old story. It's like, well, I can't just make it disappear. It's still there. It's still right in front of my face. So what do I do with it? Like, how do I navigate talking to people in the 3D? How do I navigate like reacting to situations and scenarios if I'm supposed to be being the version of me who knows that this thing is handled? What am I supposed to do when it's right in front of my face? I've been doing my imaginal acts. I've been telling myself I'm the version of myself that I want to be. I've been telling myself that I already have my desires and that it's already done. But every time I see the old story or I think about the old story, I feel like I just can't let it go, or I feel like it comes up and I just can't get rid of it. It's like the old story is sticky, icky. It's all over you and you just can't wash it off. What do we do about these things that we see in the 3D reality as our circumstances? What do we do about dealing with the old story, taking out the trash while we're calling in the new version of the story, while we're shifting into the alternative version of events that's more favorable? What do we do? Because it's kind of hard to stay in the state of being where you are fulfilled, where you're already the version of yourself, having the things you want, when you still feel like you're carrying this old story on your back. It's like you're carrying that old man with you everywhere and you just will not let him die. I've already told you about that stinky old man. Not that I have any hatred towards old people. Every time I'm just talking about that damn old man. That old man, he's always up to something. Don't listen to those old men. I understand that sometimes the old story is very much in your face. Sometimes the circumstances seem very permanent. They seem very solid and it seems like I have to do something with this. I have to either take some 3D action to get this thing to go away, or I have to persist so heavily and force myself to think and believe and know that things are actually the way that I want them to be. But in reality, I'm seeing that they're not the way that I want them to be, but I'm trying to ignore it and just stay in my happy place in imagination. It's not working. I'm being very diligent. I'm changing the story. I'm telling myself that things are the way that I want them to be. But what about this? But what about that? But yesterday I saw this, but today this thing happened. So what does that mean for my manifestation? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything unless you say that it means something. But let me tell you something right off the bat. There's no benefit to fearing that old story. The thing about the old story is, where did it come from? Didn't just poof out of nowhere, right? It can seem like it did, or it can just seem very solid, like it's always been there, it's always gonna be there. But let's think about where this situation, where this scenario came from. Where did these belief systems come from? Where did the stories that you're telling come from? Where did the way that you see things to be come from? Well, it came from the 3D reality. Maybe what people told you, maybe what you were taught growing up, maybe some kind of indoctrination that you were subject to. There's a place where this came from. It's not so much about figuring out where the place came from, because what are you gonna do? Go to the place and say, how dare you give me these limiting beliefs? No, but it's just recognizing that they did come from the place and the place wasn't really you. It wasn't a choice. You saw the things happening around you and you just assumed that this is the way that things are gonna be, this is the way that they're always gonna be, so I'm just gonna have to accept these circumstances. Not true. Once you accept the circumstances, that becomes your belief system, that becomes your worldview. And what creates the things that are on the outside of you? It comes from the inside of you, right? It comes from your self-image, your self-concept, the way that you see yourself and your belief systems about the world around you, right? So fearing what's on the outside is the same thing as fearing what's on the inside. It's really fear of self. It's really fear of your own creation. Granted, a lot of people come to this place because they realize that they have unconsciously created situations and scenarios that are not serving them. Now, the goal is, let's figure out how to transmute these circumstances, how to see it differently, how to build new belief systems, how to think about this in a way that's going to serve us and benefit us instead of continuing to be subjected to circumstances that are unfavorable. But we do have to realize and recognize and take responsibility for the fact that these creations of ours, be they beautiful or unsightly, did come from us. It's not the best feeling when you realize that you've materialized things into your reality that you're not quite vibing with, right? There's no reason to feel guilty. There's no reason to blame yourself from unknowingly and unconsciously allowing and accepting whatever circumstances are bringing you grief at this moment. Now that you know, now that you're aware, it is your choice whether to assume responsibility over the situation and to choose to see things differently, to choose to tell a new story, to choose to rewrite the script, or to continue to follow it along and to continue to manifest things as the product of those unsavory belief systems and stories, right? The thing about it is, for a long time, you've had a habit of accepting these circumstances as true, accepting them as yours, identifying with them, And that makes them very real. That makes them very comfy and welcome in your reality, because those situations, circumstances, scenarios know that if they pop up into your world, you're just gonna say, oh, there's that shitty thing again. Oh, well, that's just how things are for me. Well, I'm just the kind of person who this always happens to. And so they're like, okay, valid. Your outside world is validating your internal world, your belief systems, your assumptions, whatever you accept as true for yourself, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing. Your reality doesn't really care. All it cares about is keeping the continuity between what's going on in here and what's happening out here. So now it's your responsibility to release ownership of this old story. It's no longer your story, it's a story, one that you can choose into, or you can say, what would feel better than this? Even if I can't get all the way to, wow, my life is beautiful sunshine, daisies, and rainbows now. Let's go ahead and take one baby step into what might feel a little bit better than this. Maybe it doesn't always have to be this way. Maybe it was for a while, but I could see a world where this thing could shift in my favor, or maybe something good could happen to me. Okay, once you take that step, it's your job to continue to take steps in the right direction and let go of this suffocating attachment that you have to the old story, because the old story wants to be best buddies with you. It wants you to keep feeding it power, attention, your thoughts and your feelings so that it can continue to be made manifest. But if that's not your choice, then it has no right to continue to exist. So the more you take your attention off of it, the more you release your ownership of it, the less it's gonna feel welcome, and the less likely it's gonna be to continue existing and perpetuating its shitty story in your life. So releasing ownership of the old story, first and foremost, that is no longer your story. Maybe that's a story of old version of you, but you are no longer old version of you. You are the version of you living in the reality where you are moving forward, moving away from that story, whether it's bit by bit or whether you make a quantum leap into another reality because you are just sick and tired of living in that old story anymore. I have a couple quotes from Neville that I want to go through because I think this is really important to understand. When you want so badly for something to change in your reality and you're like, I want to change, but it's not changing. I want to see it differently, but it's not being different. I want to be a new version of myself, but I don't feel like a new version of myself. I don't know how to do it. It feels hard. How am I going to change these circumstances? Well, you're going to change it by becoming a different person internally. That doesn't mean that you have to shift and change and rearrange and fix and heal your whole entire life. It just means that you need to see that innately, you never were the person who you thought you were manifesting those old circumstances. It was never true that you were a victim. It was never true that life was unfair to you. It was never true that you were unlucky or that you were unworthy of having good things. But you chose a story where all those things were true, so it was your reality's job to validate you in that story. So if you want to see the world showing you something different, then you have to show yourself something different first. All right, do you like how my necklace disappeared? I don't. All right, thank you. Stick with me here. All right, and you stick with me here too. Neville says, the only way to change your expressions of life is to change your consciousness. For consciousness is the reality that eternally solidifies itself in the things round about you. Man's world in its every detail is his consciousness outpictured. You can no more change your environment or world by destroying things than you can change your reflection by destroying the mirror. Your environment and all within it reflects that which you are in consciousness. As long as you continue to be that in consciousness, so long will you continue to outpicture it in your world. That's from At Your Command. So I love the analogy Neville uses when he says, you can no more change your environment or world by destroying things than you can change your reflection by destroying the mirror. If the external reality is a reflection of what's happening internally, the external reality is not going to change before you change internally. And even if there were something to come in your reality and attempt to show you something different, you would be blind to seeing it because in consciousness, you are not willing and able to accept it because you cannot see that for yourself unless you choose to see it. He also says, I am the vine and ye are the branches. Consciousness is the vine, and those qualities which you are now conscious of being are the branches that you feed and keep alive. Just as a branch has no life except it be rooted in the vine, so likewise things have no life except you be conscious of them. Just as a branch withers and dies if the sap of the vine ceases to flow towards it, so do things in your world pass away if you take your attention from them, because your attention is as the sap of life that keeps alive and sustains the things of your world. So these things, these scenarios, the old story stays alive and maintains itself in your reality because you keep feeding it your attention, because you keep giving it your focus. So if you take your attention away and put it on your wish fulfilled consistently, those things in your reality will have to wither away. They will have to dissipate. They will have to disappear. This is an observer-based reality. If you are no longer observing these circumstances, taking them in as truth, seeing them as your reality, and accepting them for yourself, then they can no longer exist. So right, Neville says, to dissolve a problem that now seems so real to you, all that you do is remove your attention from it. In spite of its seeming reality, turn from it in consciousness. Become indifferent and begin to feel yourself to be that which would be the solution of the problem. Also from At Your Command. You mentally release ownership of this story and you choose in your consciousness to turn away from it, to focus on other things, to put your attention elsewhere, right? But you say, I still have to finish out the script. I'm still living this reality. I still have responsibilities. I still have people I need to talk to. I still have places I need to be. What am I gonna do in the meantime? You are the one who's facilitating the transition from current version of reality to new version of reality. If you don't maintain your focus on the path, if you start looking in this direction, then your reality is gonna start being pulled back to this direction. But if you keep your focus and attention on where you want it to be, that's the direction you're going to be pulled, right? So in consciousness, even while you're playing out these stories, finishing out the script, doing what needs to be done, you remain in the state of the wish fulfilled. Even if you have to tell the old story, even if it comes up, even if somebody's asking you, oh, why are you still single? Oh, why haven't you gotten married yet? Oh, it's late. You got to start working on those babies. In 3D reality, you tell them, oh, the right person will come when it's time. Oh, I know. Maybe I'll get on Tinder. Da 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 da. In your mind, you and SP are already happily married. You already have a ring on your finger. You are already riding off into the sunset. So what you're telling whoever it is repeating the old story to you in the 3D does not matter. You don't have to fear it in that way, that if you're telling somebody something that's happening in the 3D, like if you're having a conversation or if you have to deal with something that new version of you knows is already settled, then just do it with the gratitude of knowing that this is not where you're gonna stay. You're moving somewhere differently. The 3D will catch up. And the situations and scenarios that you're experiencing right now don't have to have anything to do with where you're going. Doesn't have to affect you, doesn't have to affect your manifestation, doesn't have to affect what you can do in your imaginal scenes, what you can desire, what you can ask for. None of that matters. What you see on the outside is a dead world. It's already manifested from whatever you have previously input into the system. So now you are consistently putting in the new input, telling the new story, giving the new signals. And when the 3D reality catches up, whatever remnants of the old story need to be gotten rid of will be gotten rid of. It is your job to continue to perpetuate the story in consciousness and continue to walk the path and follow the bridge of incidents to the place where these things that are happening in the dead world are no longer your concern. So when we say deny your senses, we don't mean to pretend that 3D reality is not happening. It doesn't mean neglect your 3D. It doesn't mean just go live in La La Land. It means to deny the reality of what's happening. Like before, when you thought your desires were like a dream or a fantasy and you were living in that La La Land, now La La Land becomes the real world and the 3D reality becomes the dead world. So you know that everything happening here doesn't really have meaning. It doesn't have any effect on what's coming next. So you deny the reality of it, you deny the truth of it, and you no longer accept it to be your truth, to be your story, to be your life. You just know that you're finishing out a script from an old version of you. Thanks, old version of me. Now I have to deal with this, but it's fine. You say, I'm staying so consistent with telling this new story that I know in no time this reality is going to pass and I am going to shift into my new reality. I'm already there. I'm already feeling the feelings of being there. I'm already telling the stories in my mind of me being there. So it has no choice but to catch up to where I am, as long as I stand firm in who I know I am. So you don't need to act as if in the 3D. Acting as if is like pretending. You don't need to pretend that something is happening that is not happening, but internally you need to know that what you decided is happening is going to happen. So in the 3D, you don't need to tell somebody that you're in a relationship. If you're not in a relationship, you don't need to tell somebody that you already have a job and you can pay for this and you can pay for that. If you're still unemployed, it's fine. Do what you need to do in the 3D in your mind. What do? Keep telling the new story. Keep telling the new story. Keep telling a new story. You don't have to tell it to the people in the 3D if you don't want to, but you can. You can say, hey, it hasn't happened yet, but I know it's going to happen for me. I'm working really hard to change this for myself, and I'd love for you to support me in that. Or if not, you can just say, okay, fuck off. If you don't believe in me, if you don't believe in my new story, I'm just not going to tell you anything about it. You can see me however you want, because when I'm living in my new reality, you're going to see me as a version of myself that I said that I was, and you're going to know and you're going to recognize, and in the end, it won't really matter. It's your choice. It's up to you, but don't feel obligated to tell stories that are not true. If it's your new story, don't feel obligated to tell people the new story if it hasn't fully manifested yet. And if you feel like telling people the new story in some way is going to put pressure on you or make you feel like it's unrealistic, or if people are negative or don't have anything good to say about what you're calling into your life, then you don't have to tell them. And telling them the old story in the meantime does not have any effect on your manifestation. You can still have what you want. You get to have it because you said you do. So that's really it. And on that note, it's okay to notice the lack of 3D evidence. If you're manifesting a pregnancy and you're not pregnant yet, you don't have to walk around holding your belly and showing everybody your baby bump and saying like, ooh, look, I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby, I'm having a baby. Internally, you are having a baby, you are planting the seed and you are nurturing it and growing it, but we don't have to start telling people about it until the baby bump is showing, right? You don't have to pretend the bump is there when it's not. You just know that it's growing. You're working on it. It's coming to fruition. It's happening right now. It's just still in the realm of the unseen, but it will be seen. So you don't have to be so delusional to the point where you're saying that things are in the 3D reality that are not there, because you might end up in a place that you don't necessarily want to be, okay? White walls, padding, tight jacket, you know, maybe not the best, but you know what to do, right? You know what to do. If you're being consistent with telling the story and you're recognizing that there's a lack of 3D evidence, that's okay. We're not validated by the 3D. That's not where you get your evidence from. All your evidence is internal. Your evidence is in your imagination. It's in your desires. It's in your conviction of knowing that you get to have what you want. So continue to validate yourself and don't worry about what's happening on the outside, because remember, everything on the outside came from the inside. So once you start validating yourself internally, your outside will start validating you as well. If you can't be diligent in rewriting it in the moment and looping that story over whatever's happening, whatever's being said, whatever's being done, you can always revise. Even if you don't remember to revise on the spot, even if you realize that you spiraled about it, you forgot to start telling the new story, you were wavering for a little bit. Every day is a new day. Every moment's a new moment. When you go to bed at the end of the night and you're like, oh, today didn't necessarily go how I wanted it to go bing. Oh yeah, I can revise this. I can live in my imagination and I can live the day as I wanted to live it. I know that me doing this right now is going to have trickle-down effects from the past to the future. It gets to change all time, what I'm doing right now in this present moment. So I can't fuck it up. I didn't go wrong. I didn't mess up. The manifestation's still coming. And just know that the bridge of incidents is unfolding always, even when it doesn't look like it, even when it looks like there's no movement, even when it looks like nothing's happening, even when it looks like it should have happened already and it still hasn't happened. You maintain the story that it is happening for me. It always happens for me. It's so easy for it to happen to me because I am an open and receptive vessel. I know my good is coming. I know my good is here. I know it's continually good. I know that I'm being led, I'm being guided. I'm no longer a victim of these circumstances because I understand that I create these circumstances. So everything here is to support me. Everything here is happening in my favor. I choose to see it that way. I know it is that way. It has to be that way because that's the story that I'm going to continue to tell. So let's talk about good and very good. I have a belief, and I think it would behoove you to accept this belief for yourself, that everything that happens is good and very good. This doesn't mean that you have to do the whole toxic positivity thing. I understand that it's not fun when you're feeling like shit is shitty, when you feel like you're not having a good time, when you feel like things aren't happening in your favor, to just be like, this is so great. I love my life. I'm so grateful that this bill is 3 weeks past due. I'm so grateful that SP slammed the door in my face and told me to never talk to him again. I'm so grateful that my dad told me I was worthless for the 3rd time this week. Like, that's not what we have to do. And it also doesn't have to be like, I'm so happy and grateful that everything is perfect. I'm so happy and grateful that everything is perfect. When things don't feel perfect, it's fine. But it's going back to this is all happening in my favor. I see this story, the story is unfavorable. I don't like the story, don't like the results that the story is giving. So I have to choose to see it differently. And if I can't see it differently right now, I'm going to make myself open to being shown that it can be different. And then when I see glimpses of it being different, I'm going to accept that. I'm going to expand on it and make more room for more good. Things get to be good and very good. Even if it seems bad, it actually gets to work out in your favor if you choose it to. You get to place the meanings on the things that are happening. You get to choose that this thing is actually not as important as it seems right now. This thing actually gets to get handled. Actually, if this seems like a problem, every problem inherently comes with a solution. So I am knowing I'm putting my faith in the reality where the solution was easy to find. The solution solution was already there the whole time. It was already solved before it even became a problem. I know that it gets to work out for me, and if I don't know how to work it out, I get to have help. It gets to be made easy. I don't have to do this all on my own. This is not a burden on my back. I just have to say this is my desire, and I know it's going to be fulfilled. And I'm going to keep walking the path. I'm going to keep choosing that everything is working out perfectly for me. And I'm going to end up in the reality where that's true, because that's the only story I'm maintaining. That's what we're going to stick with. So you have to show me the evidence of it. So you don't have to be toxically positive and say everything is great when you're crying, when you're having a panic attack, when you feel like it's not going great. But let's find the next better feeling thought, even if it's only a step up. So you don't have to be like, I'm so grateful to be $30,000 in debt, but you can say that you are grateful for the series of events, for the unfolding that is leading to that debt being wiped out, or that is leading to you being the person who feels abundant, who has so much overflow of resources in your life that that thing that seemed like such a big problem is actually no longer a problem anymore. Feeling into the relief of it, feeling into this thing is already handled. Even if it feels really shitty right now, it's okay to acknowledge that this is a shitty thing. I don't like this thing. No, actually, I'm not very grateful for this thing, but I'm grateful that I know that the thing gets to shift. I'm grateful that I know that it doesn't always have to be this way. I'm grateful that I know my own power, that I created this situation so I can just as easily uncreate it. I can do it if I'm in a bad mood. I can do it if I'm in a great mood. But the thing is that this gets to be good. It gets to be good regardless. And if I'm not feeling good about it now, I get to find ways to feel better about it. It gets to continually get better. It gets to be good and very good. Because your reality, if you're telling it, I hate this thing, I hate this thing, I hate this thing, but you're putting attention on it, your attention is the signal, not whether you like it or love it or hate it. Your reality just hears that you want some more of it. So it's like, I hate this thing, I hate this thing, I hate this thing. So it's like more of this thing, more of this thing, more of this thing. So if you don't like the thing, you can just say, hey, I really don't like this thing. I'm really unavailable for experiencing this anymore. So I'm going to choose to shift my focus and attention on things being better. I'm going to choose to know that even if things didn't work out great for me in the past, there are options available for things working better in the future. And I'm going to put my faith there so that those options can show themselves to me, because I know that even if they do, if I'm not in a receptive place, if I don't see my own good, if I don't think I'm worthy of this thing being worked out, then it's not going to get worked out. So I have to be in the place where I'm ready to allow it, where I'm willing to see things as good, where I'm willing to see things happening in my favor. It's maintaining that level of energetic alignment, maintaining your state, maintaining your mental diet, your thought patterns, staying in the wish fulfilled. That's what gets you there. Standing firm in it is working. It is working. Even if it doesn't seem like it's working, I know that I'm working it because I'm doing it right now. Do you see me? Here I am working it by making a decision over and over again, as many times as it takes to convince myself. I'm not going to be forceful about it, like go in the 3D and poke and poke and poke and fix and fix and fix, but I am going to be stubborn. Every time you come back to me, every time you show me something I don't want to see, in my mind, I'm just gonna choose to turn the other cheek. Every time, every time, every time. And eventually the things in your reality are gonna be like, this girl never pays attention to us. She never looks at us. Let's go somewhere else where people are going to validate us and accept us and feed us with their energy of worry and fear and doubt. And this is bad and this is horrible and I hate this, but they're giving the attention over here. So we're going to go over here, and you're going to go to the place where your attention is actually wanted, where it's needed, and the place where your desires are and your state of the wish fulfilled. So can we talk about letting the 3D breathe? I know how much it can feel like, why is this thing not happening? Why is this thing not working? I should be able to manifest. I should be able to manifest this thing instantly, or at least in a matter of days or a matter of weeks, definitely not a matter of months and years. So why am I waiting around? Why am I waiting around? Why isn't this thing changed already? Why hasn't this happened? Well, it's like you're breathing down your 3D's neck, telling it, why aren't you changing? Why aren't you changing? Why aren't you changing? If there was like a physical, actual person in your reality that you wanted to see differently, or that you wanted some kind of different behavior from, and you're yelling in their face, hey, why aren't you changing? Why aren't you changing? Why aren't you different? Why aren't you different? They're gonna be like, okay, fuck you. You see me as this person, so I'm gonna make sure that you know that I am this person, because you're being really shitty. You're not being very nice. You're not telling me that maybe this is not what you want in a loving and kind and gentle way. So I'm going to prove to you that I am this person that you're telling me I am, because you're all up in my face. And I think that's very rude. That's what your 3D is saying when you're breathing down its neck, saying, why aren't you changing? Why aren't you changing? Why aren't you changing? It's like, because you don't see me changing, because you haven't told me to change. You have told me to change, but you don't really feel like the person in the reality where it has changed. I go off who you are, who you say you are. Not the way you wish things were, not the way you want things to be, but the way that you see things to be, the way that you actually are. So if you're the person in the reality saying, this is not working, why is it taking so long, why is nothing happening, then your reality has no choice but to show you no movement, it taking a long time, nothing fucking happening. So you have to stop breathing down your reality's neck. You have to stop constantly checking for results, checking social media, checking this thing, checking that thing to make sure everything's in order. Now, do I think you can manifest and like keep tabs on what's going on and like see things and like recognize? Do I think you're gonna ruin your manifestation if you go on SP's Instagram and just like see how they're doing? No. But I do think there's a level where you're like looking for problems and looking for issues, because if you just say, well, I just wanted to go like SP's new post, and then you're like scrolling through the carousel and you're like, oh, who's this girl who was out at the bar? Oh, and he tagged her, and let me go on her profile, and then let me see what she's doing. Oh my God, they follow each other, and this and that. And then you just like go down the rabbit hole. So is it actually serving you to be like that deep into it, that invested in the circumstances that you don't even want to see, that you don't even like? So why are you so invested? Why are you giving your energy and your attention and your time, your focus to things that you don't want to see? Your most potent form of action is your mental action. And the physical movement can't happen if you are still consciously in the lacking of it. If you're consciously still in a state where you are aware of it not being there, it's okay to acknowledge that it's not physically manifested right in front of you, but you need to have times where you are in the conviction of it. You need to be doing an imaginal scene that allows you to feel in the presence of it, or you need to work yourself up energetically to a state where you know that it's sure, where you know that it's coming, where you know that it is happening regardless of the evidence of your senses. So you just keep identifying with the news story anyway, regardless of what you see as movement, because you never know. You never know what's happening outside of your realm of consciousness. You never know who's talking to who, what things are already on the way, what's already moving. But if that movement and that momentum is already happening, you are blocking it and you are stopping it when you're saying it's not working. So it could be like right at your doorstep, and then you're like, oh my God, where is it? It's not happening. So it's like, okay, it's not that it goes back to where it came from, but it's gonna sit there. It's not gonna come any closer until you start saying, okay, it is happening. There is movement. Things are going my way. Things are happening in my favor. And then it's allowed to come. But if you tell it it's not coming, it's not here, it can't come. So again, just keep identifying with the news story. Just tell the news story regardless. In your mind, in your imaginal acts, you're telling the news story anyway. Let's go back to talking about old story while you're manifesting the news story. Talking about whatever happened in the past, whatever you've revised, whatever you're manifesting is not what makes the old story recreate itself. What makes it recreate is your identification with the reality of it, of you thinking that it's a real thing that is solid, permanent, can't change, the meaning that you give to it. So if you think that this conversation is going to ruin my manifestation, then that conversation is going to ruin your manifestation. It is about your assumptions. Not seeing it as something that's already handled, already on its way out, already like completely irrelevant. You're seeing it as something that is still stuck. It's still real to you because you're still identifying with it. Also, another thing that recreates the old circumstances is your fear around it. Not just the fear itself, because the fear can be there and you can still manifest it, but it is giving into the fear, giving your power to the fear and saying, okay, well, you're telling me I'm not capable, you're telling me I'm not worthy, you're telling me this thing can't happen, so I guess that's just the way it is. Not realizing that that's old story thinking. It's old programming. It's not necessarily true, but you've built up a lot of belief and a lot of faith in it. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to want to go down that path because it's comfortable, even though it's not necessarily better. It's probably going to feel like the path of least resistance just because it's a mental jump for you to get to the place of, actually, this thing is not scary. Actually, this thing does get to be handled. Actually, I do get to manifest what I want. That's why you have to get practice in the new thing instead of continually submitting to the old thing. And going along with that, your fear of the old story also manifests when you are trying to avoid the situation or you're trying to fix the situation out of your like own physical effort and willpower. Go along with what's happening insofar as like what is necessary, but putting your physical action behind fixing it when you haven't seen the situation as fixed internally is never going to fix the situation. Remember, your mental action is a lot more potent than your physical action will ever be. Yes, you can do things by your own willpower, but if you still see yourself as stuck in a reality where this old story is so real and so big and so scary, then it's gonna find another place in your life to pop up, or it's gonna find a way to recreate itself because you are so scared of that happening. So don't try to avoid the old story. If somebody wants to ask you why you're not married yet, just tell them, I don't know, I haven't found the right person. It's almost like what is happening in the 3D reality becomes a lie, even though everybody else sees it as the truth, but internally you know your truth. So stop avoiding the old story or trying to fix it and just see it as fixed. See it as something that doesn't need to be avoided because it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything to you. It doesn't matter because you know where you're going, and you know that once you're in the place that you're going, that the things that are happening right now will have absolutely no importance. They'll have no more meaning. They won't matter. So instead of fearing the old story, assume the consciousness of the person in the new story. Know that everything happening externally is a product of your internal state. You are the vine. Everything manifested in physical reality, those are the branches. You give life to the things that you see. You breathe life into them in the way you speak, in the internal conversations that you have, in the way that you choose to be, okay? You are not just experiencing reality. You are reality. So shift your consciousness faithfully, and your reality will shift permanently, as long as you continue to choose into that thing. As long as you make it natural and normal to you, as long as you accept it as your truth, that's the way it's gonna be. So no better time to start than now. It's already been handled. Whether or not it looks like it in the 3D, it is handled because you handled it up here. And up here is the gateway to out here. So this old story cannot hurt you unless you give it permission. It can't hurt you if you have to talk about it. It can't hurt you if you have things that you have to finish up, loose ends that you have to tie. It's okay. It's okay. You get to handle it and know that you're walking into more. You're walking into greater. You're seeing it for yourself. You're feeling it for yourself. You're knowing it for yourself. You're believing it for yourself. It gets to happen, and it will. Continue to validate yourself internally and stop putting so much importance on what's happening out here. Who cares what's happening out here? That's not the important thing. The important thing is you. So you cultivate your mind. You nurture those seeds that you're sowing, which are your desires, and you remain faithful to that, not the things that you don't want to see anymore. Those are the branches that are allowed to fall off and die. And they can go 6 feet under with that old man. That stinky old man. Tell that old man to get lost. Let's close it out with a Neville quote. I prepared a lot of quotes today. At least they're short. They're short, so you know you love it. You know you love it when I read to you. Bedtime story. It does not matter what the appearances round about you are like. All things make way for the coming of the Lord. That's you. I am the Lord, coming in the appearance of that which I am conscious of being. All the inhabitants of the earth cannot stay my coming or question my authority to be that which I am conscious that I am. I am the light of the world, crystallizing into the form of my conception of myself. Consciousness is the eternal light which crystallizes only through the medium of your conception of yourself. Change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. Do not try to change people. They are only messengers telling you who you are. And that's from I Am He, from the Neville Goddard Complete Reader. Okay? Remember, you are who you say you are. If you think that old story is big and bad and scary, today is the day you're gonna tell it you're bigger, you're badder, you're scarier. Tell it to piss off, okay? I'm getting feisty. It's time for me to go. All right, you guys, that's gonna do it for me today. I really hope you guys enjoyed and got something of value from this video. Please be sure to leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment box below, and check out the description for my social media links, services, all that good stuff is down below. And other than that, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.